In the world of constant noise, the body of human thought is rarely still. Every day, the mind reaches outward, seeking validation, acknowledgement, and understanding from those who may neither hear nor value it. The heart, untrained in the discipline of restraint, bleeds words to the indifferent wind. Yet the wise, the few who walk the path of inner mastery, understand a truth so simple it escapes most. Power lies in silence. The act of explaining oneself, though clothed in civility, often becomes a chain. Each justification, each attempted clarification, binds the soul to the expectations of others. One who speaks to please, who defends, who rationalizes, invites the world to weigh them as it will, ignoring the weight of their true self. The Stoics observed this long before the noise of modern life. The mind that seeks external assent is a mind enslaved. Marcus Aurelius once wandered inward, reflecting not upon the judgments of the crowd, but upon the governance of his own reason. He knew that peace and authority grow not in the validation of others, but in the unshaken mastery of one's own spirit. To stop explaining oneself is not cruelty. It is not arrogance. It is the first act of sovereignty over one's own life. When a person ceases to justify their choices, their silence becomes a shield, a statement, a force that neither demands nor surrenders. Others will perceive it variously, as indifference, as mystery, as confidence, yet none can touch the quiet fortress that stands unyielding within. The one who has mastered silence understands that the energy expended in endless justification is energy stolen from the cultivation of virtue, wisdom, and inner peace. In practical life, the impulse to explain is relentless. A slight misstep in conversation, a misunderstood gesture, or a different opinion, these are sparks that ignite the fire of rationalization. We speak, we elaborate, we defend, and yet in doing so we tether ourselves to the judgments of the unaware. Seneca warned indirectly through his life of disciplined reflection that to bend oneself for the approval of others is to forfeit one's own freedom. Freedom is not granted by the crowd. It is claimed within, quietly, without spectacle, without the demand for recognition. Consider the man who never speaks beyond necessity. He moves through life measured, precise, deliberate. His actions, not his words, define him. The world may speculate, misinterpret, or even malign him. He does not respond. He does not justify. His silence is not emptiness. It is a concentrated presence, a focused declaration of self-command. Through silence, he preserves his energy, his dignity, and his clarity. He does not seek to alter perception, for he knows perception is not his domain. He seeks mastery over himself, and in that mastery lies inviolable power. The student of Stoicism understands that all human events are indifferent. Praise, criticism, misunderstanding, these are phenomena external to the soul. They may touch the body, stir the mind momentarily, but they cannot invade the citadel of reason unless invited. To explain oneself is to extend an invitation to the world, to interfere in one's internal order. Every defense, every clarification is a breach of the walls that Stoics build within. Epictetus, observing the tumult of human desires and the misalignment of expectation, would counsel restraint. The mind that is disturbed by others' opinions has yet to grasp the primary law of freedom. Control what is within your own grasp. Relinquish the rest. Silence, then, is not passive. It is a form of engagement more powerful than any spoken word. When one refrains from defending or rationalizing, one exerts influence over the world without contact, over the mind without argument. People will project, speculate, and often respect is granted unconsciously, as though by recognition of something deeper than surface interactions. The Stoic sage does not need acknowledgement. Recognition is a byproduct of virtue, not its currency. Those who demand it, by contrast, are forever impoverished, their energy drained in service to the illusions of others. There is a hidden rhythm to this practice. At first, it is uncomfortable. The urge to speak, to clarify, to convince, presses like a shadow over the soul. Friends, colleagues, family, all will misinterpret, all will expect explanation. One may feel the heat of judgment, the sting of misunderstanding. Yet each act of restraint, each measured silence, strengthens the inner citadel. The energy once squandered on persuasion is redirected to reflection, to the cultivation of calm judgment, to the shaping of actions that speak louder than words ever could. In the darkness of the unspoken, one begins to observe the world with precision. The loudest voices, those demanding attention and validation, reveal their insecurities. The mind that has mastered silence sees the futility of chasing approval. By stepping back, by refusing to explain, one gains clarity. Others' attempts to manipulate, to provoke, or to ensnare lose their potency. The quiet observer is no longer a participant in trivial contests. They are not carried away by rumor, argument, or expectation. They are anchored in reason, unshaken, sovereign. Yet silence is a discipline. Without intention, it can be misread as passivity, weakness, or indifference devoid of purpose. True power in restraint comes from the union of inner strength and deliberate presence. One who masters this art is both unyielding and fluid, like water confined to its channel, yet shaping the course of the land. Marcus Aurelius advised governing one's own soul as a ruler governs a city. The ruler who explains every action, who justifies each law, weakens their authority. The silent, deliberate leader is observed, respected, and ultimately unassailable. In human relationships, the need to explain oneself is often a manifestation of fear. Fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of misunderstanding. The Stoic mind recognizes fear for what it is, a reaction to the perception of what is outside its control. To act in accordance with virtue, without explanation, is to release these chains. One acts rightly, not for recognition, not for praise, not for acceptance, but because action aligned with reason and principle is itself sufficient. Silence, therefore, becomes a mirror. Those who demand justification reveal themselves, their insecurities, and their values. They are drawn to interpret, to project, and to react, but the silent mind is unassailable. The observer sees the energy expended in others' judgments and reserves their own. The less one explains, the less one is ensnared. The more one preserves their voice for purpose rather than reaction, the more potent that voice becomes when finally employed. Even in conflict, silence is a weapon of extraordinary subtlety. Words are fleeting. Once spoken, they cannot be recalled. Arguments escalate. Minds entangle. The one who remains silent does not merely abstain. They redirect the current, controlling the engagement without engagement. Emotional storms may swirl around them, but they stand like a lighthouse unmoved, guiding not by noise, but by the unshakable presence of reason. In professional life, in social arenas, in intimate spaces, the temptation to explain oneself is constant. To withhold explanation is often perceived as arrogance, aloofness, or mystery. Yet what is arrogance but a misinterpretation of self-possession? What is mystery but the natural consequence of wisdom unspoken? The Stoic understands that their internal order is neither subject to interpretation nor dependent on perception. Others' opinions are external events. Mastery of self is internal achievement. There is, furthermore, a subtle elegance to silence. Actions become more deliberate. Speech, when used, carries weight. A word chosen carefully resonates more powerfully than the torrent of endless defense. A glance, a pause, a measured gesture communicates presence, authority, and reason. In cultivating silence, one shapes not only their inner life, but also the perception of the world. Quiet confidence is visible even when unspoken. It draws attention precisely because it is not manufactured, because it is not seeking affirmation. The journey toward mastery of silence is arduous. It requires self-awareness, patience, and the discipline to withstand misinterpretation. The first lessons are in small acts, withholding clarification when insulted, resisting the impulse to justify personal choices, observing reactions without reaction. Gradually, one extends this practice into every domain of life: professional dealings, social interaction, family obligations, and the inner dialogue of the mind. Through this practice, one begins to see the futility of explanation as a habit. The more one explains, the more others expect. The more one justifies, the more one is ensnared by the judgments of the unready. Energy once scattered is now concentrated. The mind becomes a well-tempered instrument, capable of precision, judgment, and calm. Emotional turbulence diminishes because it no longer depends on external validation. This is the power of Stoicism made tangible: authority over self, sovereignty over perception, freedom from the tyranny of opinion. The mastery of silence extends beyond the self into the realm of others. When one has ceased to justify every action, when one no longer bends to the compulsion of explanation, relationships transform. The world observes, but cannot compel. Those who have grown accustomed to the noise of argument, the incessant cascade of words, are initially unsettled by the absence. They seek to fill it with their own assumptions, their own projections. Here the Stoic mind does not act, does not intervene, but watches. The wise understands that others' reactions are events external to the soul, and therefore irrelevant to the stability of reason. In the art of governance over one's inner life, silence functions as both shield and instrument. It guards against misinterpretation, for words can never fully capture the entirety of one's thought. It shapes perception, for measured absence of speech compels others to fill the void with respect rather than intrusion. The individual who practices this discipline develops a form of invisible authority. They are a presence that commands attention not by assertion, but by the absence of need. In silence, the self reveals its strength most potently, and it is precisely this restraint that fosters true influence. Consider the dangers inherent in habitual explanation. To continually justify oneself is to concede power to the opinions of others. Every argument offered, every reason articulated, is an opportunity for the mind of another to assert dominance, to create dissonance, to unsettle balance. In this relinquishment, one forfeits agency over their own perception, over their own peace. The Stoic recognizes that mastery is not in altering the judgments of the ignorant, but in maintaining the integrity of the mind. Authority arises not from the acclaim of the crowd, but from the unwavering stability of the soul. Silence, however, is not absence of thought. It is a deliberate, measured engagement with reality. The Stoic does not avoid communication for the sake of avoidance. They act with precision, choosing words only when they serve reason, when they embody clarity and necessity. In every sphere of life, this discernment cultivates a presence of distinction. Speech becomes intentional. Words once spoken carry weight. They are instruments sharpened by restraint, their resonance amplified by the quiet from which they emerge. Through this deliberate discipline, the practitioner achieves an economy of expression. a mastery of influence, far exceeding that of the loquacious or reactive. Human nature is prone to misinterpretation, yet the one who has embraced silence is impervious. Those who demand explanation will speculate, they will misjudge, and they will seek to provoke reaction. Yet the silent mind remains unshaken. Observation replaces defense. Patience replaces impulsivity. Reason replaces the urge to justify. Through the lens of Stoicism, one understands that the impressions of others are transient, mutable, and ultimately inconsequential. Only the alignment of action with virtue holds lasting significance. Herein lies the power of silence. It liberates the practitioner from the tyranny of external perception. The consequences of ceasing to explain oneself manifest in subtle yet profound ways. In professional life, colleagues may initially perceive aloofness or detachment, yet over time, respect is cultivated through consistency, competence, and measured presence. In social interactions, peers may speculate, but the one who doesn't indulge in endless defense commands quiet admiration, their actions speaking with authority where words once faltered. In the intimate sphere, relationships are strengthened not through the incessant rationalization of behavior, but through the alignment of deeds with principle, the consistency of conduct over time, and the unshakable clarity of intent. This discipline, however, is not achieved without struggle. The first impulses to speak, to clarify, to justify, arise from fear. Fear of misunderstanding, fear of rejection, fear of diminished esteem. These impulses, natural yet untrained, are remnants of an ungoverned mind. The Stoic recognizes them as such, observing their presence without surrender. In moments of social friction, in encounters of provocation or dispute, the practitioner chooses restraint. They act when reason dictates and refrain when action would serve only to feed the demands of others. This is not avoidance, it is mastery. It is the cultivation of a mind impervious to the agitation of transient opinion. Through prolonged practice, the silent mind gains clarity. Energy once wasted on defense is redirected to contemplation, to action, to the pursuit of virtue. Emotional turbulence, the anxiety of judgment, the restless compulsion to explain, gradually dissipate. One begins to act in accordance with principle, unbound by the expectations of the ignorant or inattentive. The world may continue its cacophony of opinion, yet within the quiet citadel of the mind, peace prevails. This is not mere detachment, but a profound engagement with reality, the acceptance of what lies beyond control, and the disciplined cultivation of what lies within. The power of silence also extends to persuasion. The one who refrains from excessive speech compels attention through presence alone. Others, conditioned to constant verbal assertion, are drawn to consider the meaning behind absence. In measured silence, authority emerges naturally, for it is recognized unconsciously. The mind that commands without argument, that acts without apology, exerts influence far exceeding the loudest declaration. This is the principle observed by Stoics throughout history. Virtue, clarity, and self-command are their own justification, rendering external approval superfluous. In interpersonal conflict, silence is a subtle form of control. It allows the practitioner to maintain composure, observe motives, and preserve energy. Arguments dissipate when met with measured inaction, and emotional manipulation loses its power against a mind trained in restraint. The individual who does not engage in reactive explanation maintains dominance over the psychological landscape. They are not swayed by provocation, nor do they grant power to those who seek to unsettle. Their influence is quiet, pervasive, and immutable, born of internal mastery rather than external performance. Silence, in its deepest form, cultivates self-respect. To explain endlessly is to acknowledge, however unconsciously, that one's own judgment is insufficient, that the perception of others is paramount. The Stoic mind rejects this inversion. Self-mastery, not external approval, defines authority. By withholding unnecessary justification, one asserts sovereignty over personal boundaries, reinforcing the integrity of thought, the dignity of action, and the discipline of judgment. The more one refrains from explanation, the more one embodies the principles of self-command, resilience, and quiet confidence. As mastery develops, one perceives the subtle dynamics of human behavior. Those who seek constant explanation reveal their dependence on perception, their fragility, and their insecurity. By contrast, the silent practitioner exudes presence, clarity, and stability. Observation replaces reaction. Foresight replaces impulsivity. In social and professional spheres alike, influence is exerted not by words, but by consistent action, deliberate absence, and the cultivation of a mind untouchable by misinterpretation. This is the essence of Stoic authority: calm, unassailable, and deliberate. The practice of silence is, moreover, transformative. It reshapes perception, not only of others, but of the self. One begins to recognize which words are necessary, which arguments are worth engaging, and which conflicts are inconsequential. Through this discernment, time and energy are conserved. Emotional equilibrium is maintained. Decision-making is guided by reason rather than compulsion. The individual grows increasingly aware of the distinction between what is within their control and what is not, the fundamental principle of Stoic philosophy. Even in solitude, silence serves as teacher and mirror.